I'll go ahead and get started. These are some of the general areas we're going to cover today. Due to the number of participants this year, everyone will be on mute. Please send any chat questions and then we can see what can be addressed. If we can't during the webinar, we'll get back to you afterwards. We have several people presenting today to get you introduced to a few of our RKL team members and change things up a bit. My name's Leanne. Everyone may know me from support. I've been supporting 500 for quite some time now, as well as some of the other products. Becky Keene will be covering 1099s again this year. Since many of you may have been traumatized from last year's changes, we want to go ahead and cover this up front. Things are not changing and everything is going to be okay. But we are here to help if you need us to help. I'm going to come back on and going to cover opening 2022 and closing 2021 and maybe show you some tricks to make it a little bit easier. Jim Gilbertson will be covering reminders about some special areas, including Sage FAS updates, physical inventory, purging, and pruning your data. Jennifer Pitt will share the RKL website tools and available blogs. I'll let Becky get started.
All righty, this is Becky. Thank you, Leanne. Okay, the first thing is technically there are changes for 2021, but don't think we're going to have too many effects. The 1099 miscellaneous has a new box. If you purchase fish for resale, kind of a limited number of our customers, I would think. And there are a couple of new boxes on the 1099 dividend having to do with the Section 897 ordinary and capital gains dividends, which has something to do with U.S. real estate. And I think it has to do with non-resident aliens, which is a technical tax term, not a lizard person, but neither of those are likely to affect anybody. So you probably don't have to put on the update. Sage will be delivering an update in a couple of weeks, but you're not required if you don't need it for that. So most of you are going to be on a supported version. That would be 2017 or later if you had Sage updates. If you were on a version 2016 or earlier, you may have gotten last year the RKL update, but you'll know you've got something to work with. You go to any of your locations where the 1099 boxes are. If you see Form NEC Box 1, then everything's very good. You've got last year's updates. That was our trauma, was last year with a whole new form. This year, nice and quiet. So just as an aside, I noticed this morning that the IRS is so optimistic things aren't going to change that for the 1099 dividend form, they have a revision date of 2022. If you look at the little green arrows, they actually set things up so that you could put calendar year 20 and type in 21, 22, 23. They didn't even try that for miscellaneous, but they did that for interest and dividends, and I think they're optimistic. We'll see. Okay. If you are on Sage 2016 or earlier, and you are on an unsupported version, you're still going to see your Form Miscellaneous Box 7 non-employee compensation, which means you can't really use Sage 500 directly to print 1099s, even if you just have a few of them. It's not really going to work. Now, this is a version that was officially retired by Sage in June of 2019. So, we could try to get you updates from last year. If you're seeing this, we probably really need to talk to you about doing an upgrade next year so you can get past this. But in the meantime, there are fairly easy ways to get around it. You can just get the data out and use one of the online services to print your 1099. So we'll get into the online services more. Deadlines, big red one. Now, I'm kind of preaching to the choir here because the people who are organized enough to get on a webinar beforehand aren't going to be the ones who call me in a panic on January 31st at 4 p.m. But, you know, nice to review how good it is that we are the organized sorts. First thing is filing deadline for the 1099 NEC, both vendor and IRS, is January 31st. But you want to allow about 3 days prior to that for the processing service. They request that you have it in your files uploaded like the 28th for them to take care of the 1099s. We'll find that most of them will take your file and take care of things on the 31st. They're going to charge you a premium for it. Other forms are back to the standard from years ago, paper out to vendors, and by the end of February, electronic filing by the end of March. And the penalties have gotten really nasty. For every 1099 form that you file late but within 30 days, that's a $50 fine. From 31 days up through July, it's 110, 270 after that, and they can charge you $550 for intentionally disregarding filing. So then on January 28th, you go, I didn't get to that. I'm just going to do an extension. There is an extension thing, but this isn't like a 1040 extension, your individual income tax return. If you fill out this extension form, it's only good for 30 days. And you have to go and check the box that says, this is for fire, death, serious illness. They don't want excuses on these. So you want to get it in. You want to make use of one of the services to do the electronic filing. I think some of our customers have figured out how to do this themselves, but hardly worth it. It's like a huge document about that. They were also talking about implementing a new rule a couple of years ago, where if you have 100+ returns, you have to do it electronically. They've stuck with the 250 for at least a couple more years. I don't know when they're going to make that change. Okay, so before January 28th, you want to be sure and review your vendor payments. Even though you've been processing everything nicely in Sage 500 and tracking your 1099, everybody knows things go wrong. Someone gets a vendor and puts in invoices and payments, and then they realize later the vendor would need a 1099. Figure you're all sending out W-9 forms, but things get missed. And after the fact, you can use edit voucher 1099s to change the data. You can enter 1099 beginning balances for just putting in dollar amounts that are missing. To review the 1099s, under AP Explorers, there out of the box, there is a Vendors Explorer that about all it has is the address and whether it's 1099. There's a vendor payment, but it doesn't summarize, it doesn't have 1099. But most of you, I think, will find that you probably got something under your Explorers called Vendor 1099 Master or something close to that. If not, you probably want to contact us. We wrote and have rolled out a lot of different places an Explorer that will put everything in one place to review. It's got the vendor, it's got the create date of the vendor, so you can concentrate on the vendors that are new. It's got rolling 3-year columns as to how much was paid to each vendor, how much was paid and is currently showing as 1099. This also, if you're using an online service other than Atrix, and you need that downloadable Excel spreadsheet with the dollar amounts, the 1099 type and the address, you can use it for that. So contact us if you don't have that. So for those of you who are just plain old tired of this whole 1099 hassle, what you try to do is convince these vendors to let you pay them by credit card. You get all the credit card points and that kind of fun thing. But better yet, if you have paid by credit card, then you're no longer responsible for doing the 1099 for these people, because that now is in the credit card issuer's hands. They have a 1099-K that they need to fill out. And if you send it in also, that would actually be a duplication. So the paying vendors by credit card, there's also a new feature in Sage 2019 where you can mark a given vendor, say Amex, as your credit card vendor. And then you could have Joe's Construction. When you pay Joe's Construction, you can say they are being paid by credit card vendor Amex, and it essentially moves the liability from Joe's Construction over to Amex. Nice, useful thing. Back to the RKL Explorer, the vendor 1099 master I mentioned. Out of the box, it does not break out by the credit card payments. We've done that, but we have to do that for an individual customer because we have to figure out how you're keeping track of this being a credit card payment. Couple more slides and we'll be done with 1099s. So online services. I kept talking about these online services. The one at the bottom is Atrix, which you can also get to directly. But we come up with a list of other ones we found online that our other customers have used, been around for a while. All of them will provide the same basic service. You upload a file, usually Excel, but I think some of them may be CSV files still. You go online, you'll map it out, you'll go through the cloud up to their servers, obviously heavily encrypted because you've got credit card, or you've got 1099 taxpayer IDs in here. And those services will, a minimum e-file for you, software to print. But I would also recommend looking into having them do the full service, everything from printing the vendor 1099s and mailing it to the electronic filing. The rates on those vary. Last time I looked, Atrix was about $2.39. I don't know if they've changed it up or down. I'm just showing up in demo, $25 minimum. But if you compare that to the effort that goes into having somebody who has to either go online and order the forms, hopefully enough, because there's nothing like running short at the last minute, or going to Staples to get them, getting this figured out, getting them into the printer, printing on the correct side, not on the back side, stuffing them into envelopes, cost of postage. It just makes too much sense to have somebody else worry about that. That is what to do. And some additional resources before we get off of the 1099s. We still have a blog up that shows information on those changes in the 1099 non-employee compensation from last year. There is an Atrix 1099 joint page and it talks about Atrix in reference to Sage 500, IRS information about the 1099 NEC. Actually, the next to the bottom one, order forms online. What I like to do is December 1st, when they open up for it, is to go onto the IRS website. From there, you can go through and you can check, I want 6 1099 miscellaneous and 10 1099 NACs, one interest and dividends, just so I know what they look like, some 1096 cover sheets. And then we were working with the Service Bureau, you know what these things are supposed to look like. And you also have a backup plan. If on January 31st, you find this vendor who you suddenly go, oh crap, we should have done a 1099 for them, we missed it. February 3rd, you have a correction to the 1099 you sent out. The dollar amount was wrong. The Social Security number was wrong. Any of these services, you can go on and make use of them, but you're talking about a minimum fee, a minimum amount of time to get through these. And instead, if you have the forms there, they are the old forms, carbon paper type forms. You just take a pen, you fill it out. You've got 4 copies, one mailed to the vendor, another to the IRS, cover sheet, done. Then pen and paper, it's not beautiful, but it takes care of things. So that's about all I've got to say about 1099s today, though I'm sure I'm going to be talking to many of you more as the time actually comes. So and if you have any questions, all RKO, not so much the tax advice, just the how do you fill out the forms and how do you get it to work. So I'll be turning it back over to Leanne to discuss general calendar and closing.
Thanks, Becky. Next, I'm going to go ahead and discuss preparing for 2022 and closing 2021. I'll probably be losing some of the veterans in our group as the year end closes at this point, but if you stick around, it might give you some new ideas. And for compulsive sorts, discussing 2022 before 2021 is tough, but that's the order I'm going to go through it. Thank you. The first topic I'll talk about is your GL fiscal calendar. To prepare for 2022, you will need to make sure your next fiscal calendar year is available and open. You're going to navigate to the Setup Fiscal Calendar task within the General Ledger module. You'll click the fiscal year dropdown and check to see if 2022 already exists. If you need to add the year, you can click on the Add Year button and then add your periods after. You can click Yes if you're prompted with a message saying beginning balances for the new fiscal year and ID will be calculated. Do you wish to proceed? It is okay to say yes to this prompt. All accounting periods are initially set to your open status. The open status may be changed from closed to open in order to make adjusting journal entries prior to closing a period. You cannot change a period from open to closed in this task. An open period may not be closed manually. Only the period end processing may close your period. When a period is open, the fiscal year is also set to an open status. The fiscal year may only be closed by performing the year-end closing using the period end processing. And once the year is created, you have the option to open the periods. You can click the status dropdown to open your period. It is recommended to not open until you're closer to that period of time. The start date column of the following period will always default as the following day of the end date in the previous period. If you need to modify the dates from a period that is early in the year, it is easier to delete all the periods after the affected period and then adjust the end date. Once the correct end date is in, then you can add your periods back quickly to fill in the rest of the year. The fiscal calendar setup also allows you to lock periods, so unwanted postings will be blocked, which I will cover next. So for module periods, you have options to lock your periods. And I had mentioned that you can lock and unlock periods to prevent postings to those periods. Sage 500 allows you to default the modules to unlock when future periods are created. These controls are in the setup options tasks for each module. The one we're looking at right now is in the setup AP options. If the unlock all future periods is checked, then the new year creation will set all the periods to unlocked. You can also specify a number of periods to be unlocked. This can, of course, be updated manually in the fiscal calendar if you need to. As far as our inventory calendar is concerned, it must be set up before posting transactions for your 2022 year. Since there is no direct task on the Sage 500 desktop, the inventory calendar may be hard to find. You'll actually need to navigate to the Setup IM Options task. There's a miscellaneous section that will have a button called Inventory Calendar. When you go ahead and click on that Inventory Calendar button, and to create the new year, you'll click the cancel icon to clear the grid of the current year. And then you need to type in the new year, 2022, in the year field. For a quick setup, you may choose the Copy From button to use the same start date and end date of the previous year, or the monthly option to fill the period start and end dates in the new year. The work days are used by replenishments, demand, and safety stock formulas. When saving a new year or editing an existing year in the inventory calendar, the system prompts for inventory history recalculation. This is required to put the correct balances in the correct tables. If you're prompted with this message, you're going to click yes to the message. And Becky has on our slide, if it's slow, kill it. But if you're having difficulty with the time it's taking to recalculate the inventory history, and we can assist if you need assistance. And after that, I'm pretty much done, and Jim's going to go ahead and move on to general health checks and updates.
So this is the exciting part. We're going to talk about fixed assets. Don't go to sleep just yet. So fixed assets, if you have this software, you come out with a new version every year. The main key is that it will include all of the updates for anything that was changed through Congress and the IRS. Luckily for 2021 and 2022, so far, there have been very few changes. You do want to do these updates and be on the current version, because this software requires you to do the version update as each one independently. You can't jump from 2018 to 2021. You'd have to do the upgrade from 2018 to 2019 to 2020 and then 21. So there's really no reason to not stay current on it, even if you're not using it for tax depreciation. Because there's been so few changes in the taxes themselves and in the calculation methods, the FAS has been able to focus on making changes to the software itself and making it a little better. The asset list now has an optional totals on the screen. It's much better to export to Excel. It's been more readable. The interface to the customization of the asset list has been improved. Big help, disposals can be done at any time in a period, either before or after the depreciation. And the asset import tool has been enhanced, and that one's a whole lot better as well. So that's really it for FAS. There's not that much there. Fiscal inventory. This is the time of year when everybody gets to do their full year-end physical inventory. If you're going to be doing a full physical inventory, you can let us know. We will be on standby for you if you need some help, you've got questions, you've got issues. I've already talked to several clients about making them more comfortable with this process. So first off, you want to have a plan on what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, who's going to do the actual counting, and do you need weekend coverage? And that's, do you need weekend coverage from RKL to assist you with it? When you go in and create your original count batch, you get to filter it, determine what it is that you're going to count, whether you're going to do it by warehouse, by bins, you're going to do it for everything. It is one warehouse at a time when you're doing, at a minimum, one warehouse at a time. So when you create your batch, you get to either print count cards or count sheets. Count cards are one page of paper for each item bin combination. Those are typically then handed out to the count group. and they tack it up against the wall of the bin where they're going to go count it from. Count sheets is more like an Excel spreadsheet. It's a piece of paper, but it's got 30 or 40 items per page, and each item bin combination is on an individual line. Once you get done doing your counts, if you've kept that count information in Excel, you can use Data Porter to import that, so you don't have to have somebody sit there and do all of that data entry manually. When entering your counts, you can show the counted. This is at the individual count record level. You can show the items that have been counted, the items that have not been counted, or both, by using the apply button that's over on the right-hand side. You can set the uncounted records to 0. So if you've gone through, counted everything, entered all of those counts, and you still have count cards or sheets, records that don't have a quantity, they just never got counted in the warehouse because they don't exist anymore out there, you can just set all of those to 0. Most important thing is the timing for when you freeze your counts. Don't freeze it too early. When you freeze it, it takes the quantity that's in the system that it says it has on hand at that moment and locks that in. And then that's what you're doing your comparisons against. So what you really want to do is you want to create the count batch. You want to print all of your documents. You want to get everybody ready to do the physical count process. And then when you've got that magic moment that your data entry is now caught up with what physically happened in the warehouse, then you freeze your counts. As soon as you get done freezing the counts, you can go back and start transaction entry again. And you can do that and enter all of the transactions that you need to on an ongoing basis for what's actually going on in the warehouse. Once again, once you're done with all of that process, you can import all of the information with Data Porter and Excel. On to the next slide for the physical inventory still. I think I'm getting ahead. So there's 3 reports that you get out of the system by default. The missing count cards, that's anything where there was not a entry made for the count card as to the quantity that was counted. There's a reconciliation report. That shows you the activity that occurred after the freeze. So you can sort of determine, okay, did I mess up and I didn't include my purchase order receipt of goods for that, but I physically counted it in the warehouse? It's the timing issues between when you froze. The less timing issues you've got, the easier it is to tie all of this out. The other report is the discrepancy report. It shows the difference between the quantity that was frozen and the quantity that was counted. If you're on a newer version, there is an Explorer for pending physical counts, and that is at the bin lot serial level for all of the items that you have in that batch. We have also created some Explorer views that make life a little easier when you're doing your physical counts and you're trying to reconcile all the information. If you want those, give us a call, let us know, send us an email. We can help you out with getting some of that information. Next up, we're on to a disaster recovery plan. I used to think at one point in time that this was a lot of hype and that they weren't really used a whole lot anymore. You need one of these desperately, terribly. If you don't have one in place, figure out how to create one. RKL can actually help you with our infrastructure team. It used to be that you could get by without one of these, but we have customers, even with great controls, that have been hit by ransomware. And some of them are asking for exorbitant amounts of money. So in a disaster recovery plan, you want to have a list of your emergency contacts. You want that list not on your server, or if you do, you want a hard copy of it. You want an update recovery task checklist, including who's going to do which steps. Because when this hits, you don't have a whole lot of options and a whole lot of time to be able to go do research and find out, okay, who should be doing what? You need to know that ahead of time. So from the Sage environment and the SQL environment, make sure that you have a backup, that it's being backed up off-site, and that it is not connected to your network, and test recovery from that. Typically, if you've got a backup off-site and it's not connected to your network, you're probably in pretty good shape and you can get back to your data. If you don't, and all of your backups are online or on-prem, you could easily get hacked for ransomware, and now you have nothing to restore. In addition to the actual database itself being backed up, make sure that you have the SQL and Sage install media and the product keys, and that you have passwords for everything that you need. And if you're using credit card, make sure that you have those encryption keys, because you can't get back to them without any of that other stuff. So it used to be we were worried about other stuff. Now it's really ransomware, and it can get really nasty. We've had several clients that it's not easy getting out of it. Next up is some of the pruning and cleaning up data in your system, at least making it easier for users. In the latest couple of versions, they've now added functionality to be able to inactivate a whole lot of things more than just customers, vendors, items that have always been there. You can now inactivate GL accounts. You can inactivate other setup options within the software, so that when somebody is doing a lookup, they're not looking through 100,000 customers, 20,000 of which hasn't had any activity in the last 3 years, vendors that you haven't used for a long time. We're getting more calls from customers, clients that have large GL account lists, and they've realized that they're really not using all of them anymore, and they'd like to make some of those smaller so that when I'm doing a lookup, I only see the ones that are active. Number of ways that you can get back to some of this stuff to be able to figure out whether you want to use that account or whether you want to make it inactive or not. The vendor performance report is one of them. There's also some little drill down kind of functions you can get from the vendor into the vendor last activity. That would show you when the last activity was for that vendor and what type of activity it was. That can allow you to do that. You can sort of do the same thing with the customer list of when was their last payment, when was their last invoice, those kinds of things. You can use explorers in other places to give you a better list for, okay, this is the stuff I don't want to delete it because I still want to retain the history, but I don't need all of that stuff. Use Data Porter for the updates. Easy to do with Data Porter to update master data. And another one that's really important is train your users on using filters. If you've got a lot of data, it will really cut down on the amount of server usage for that. Sorry, I have a little construction going on in the house in the background there. So on to the next slide there. Thank you. Got one too far there. So purging data. We recommend you be really careful about what you're purging, and don't purge information that you know you're going back and looking at on any kind of a regular basis. Some of the things that are easy to purge and they really aren't going to create problems as long as you don't use it for reference is information in the purchase order and sales order module. The POs are the receivers, the returns, requisitions, all of those documents. The sales order is a quote, shipment, returns, RMAs, pick lists. Getting rid of some of that information is not too difficult, and it doesn't really create problems in the system. Completed work orders, if you're using manufacturing, that's a really good one. Most people don't need to get back to that information after half a year to a year. The system manager can also keep log files. If you have audit tracking turned on in your options for the individual applications, like you're adding, deleting, changing customer records, it's customers, GL accounts, vendors, item IDs, those audit logs can grow to be pretty big. It's a wise move to keep those maintained and shrink them down whenever possible. At least most people don't need that data after about 6 to 12 months. You can contact us if you want help with getting rid of any of this information. Deleting inactive users, remove them from Sage first so that they can't log in. There are a couple of places where that ID can still be visible. That if you remove it from the just Sage, you'll be able to see the user ID within Sage. Good to get rid of them out of SQL eventually. You might not want to do it immediately. Inactive companies, after a certain point, what you might want to do is make a backup of the database so that you can retain the history of the inactive companies and then delete them from your production environment. Keep the backup out there so you can still get back to it, but get rid of remove all of that data out of the production environment. Last one is pruning specific tables. Work tables are a really good example. They all end with WRK. They're really used for transactional information, a lot for reporting, creating reports, generating invoices and that kind of information. And they're supposed to clean themselves up automatically. We find that sometimes something gets stuck in there and then they just start to balloon up. Good to run a process once a week that just says, go through and truncate all of the work tables. And we've got routines to do that. We can help you with. Another big one that we've seen recently is the TCI DB activity log. This is created by Sage, strictly for use by Sage for activity that was done in the database that didn't come through the user interface. We've seen where that log can get really, really large if you're doing updates on any regular basis. We've taken a number of clients and said, just purge that down to the last 6 months. Might take a while to get it down there to begin with, but once you do it, and you can maintain it there with a nightly SQL backup job. We'll clean some of that information up. Last one from my part is menus and security groups. The slide will magically change here soon. Here we go. There's a menu upgrade utility. It's really hidden. It's not in the user menus inside Sage at all. You have to go to this long path within Workstation to be able to get to it. It will show you all of the menu items that have been added by Sage that you haven't added on to your current menu. So it's good to go through every once in a while, depending upon who did your upgrade. If we did the upgrade, we should have automatically done this and included everything. Sometimes it just gets missed in the rush to get everything done. Good to look at it. When you do, it's a good place to look and see if you've got security issues as well. If you've been on the software for a while, it's really good to come back and review your security for specific issues for segregation of duties. Those are the ones I get worried about most. I'm finding with larger companies, there's a whole lot more SOX compliance, and they're coming up with additional things that I can post a GL entry, but I can't post it if I created the batch, that kind of thing. We have views that you can use to help you identify those things. Come talk to us. We can help get those installed and get ready for all of that kind of stuff. So that's the end of my side. Now it's off to Jennifer.
Hello. So I'm going to talk to you about resources. So I know, this time of year we can get pretty busy. Not just us, you guys as well. Your time is valuable, so you want to get the most out of it at the end of the year. So you could spend that time with your family and friends during the holiday season. So I want to let you know about the resources that are available to you. I will start with RKL eSolutions. Obviously, we are your partner on record, so we know quite a bit about your environment. Maybe not all of us, but we all have probably had a hand in your environment at some point. So we definitely recommend that you reach out to us. You can reach out to our website here. We have blogs. Our blogs are pretty good because we all kind of contribute to the blogs. So if we go over here to the RKL eSolutions website, I will let you get there. When you get there, yep,
Give me just a second to get it going here. Sorry,
that's okay.
unless we can switch over to, do you want to share your screen at this point? It's probably working.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, why don't we take the half a second to switch screen shares? Didn't want to do that too much, but we can do that now. Okay.
So here's the RKL eSolutions website. You guys are looking at, somebody just shout out that we're looking at the right screen here.
Yep.
Okay,
That's great.
fantastic. So the top right is our blogs. So it can be a little cumbersome to try and find it, but how I get there is I go to the blog link up here, and then I kind of scroll down about halfway. And you could type in here, you might be looking, and it's dynamic, so it's going to start trying to find something for you. So you could type in Sage 500, Data Porter, which is one of the big ones that I typically do. But in any case, you could search in here and find past webinars that we've done. You can find just written blogs. You can find links and contacts. So there's a lot going on our RKL eSolutions website. So that's probably one of the places that, I would say go ahead and take a look there. We do have, because I think it's on, let me just go back here. Sage 500. We do have one that talks about the end of life of Sage, that if you haven't seen this one, it's been updated in March. So you may want to take a look at this one and see, what's going on with Sage 500, where you're at. And, maybe when it's time to think about getting off of Sage 500 and getting onto something more current, you could see what other software packages are out there that might fit for you guys. Okay, I'm going to stop my share. We'll go back to the presentation. I'm not sure, was that you, Becky, that was sharing your screen?
Okay, I can go back to screen share. Just have a sec here. We're trying to minimize the amount of switching back and forth that we did here.
Okay, thank you. So in addition to our website, actually go back, yep, you can reach out to our support team directly. So we do have automation in place when you email our support team, the support@rklesolutions.com. That will, as long as you've sent a case in or something in the past, it will automatically recognize your account and create a ticket for you. So it's really nice and speedy and that's basically Leanne's team. It's been amazing for us. And so the faster that your ticket gets in and gets created, the quicker that you will get a response to your email. So I know a lot of the times that we'll have, you guys reach out to the consultant that you may be familiar with. Sometimes those consultants are on site, sometimes they're away on holiday. So you won't always get a response that quickly, but know that if you email the support box, your message will be seen and it will get responded to quickly. And then additionally, there's Sage support that you could reach out to them. You must be on a current version -3. That's all that they will support. You can go to the Sage knowledge base or Sage City. All those resources are available to you if you cannot find them the answer, you know, on your own, or if you need something just kind of self-service. So that's what I have. The other thing I did want to mention in regards to our support team is that the support box is monitored from 8 a.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Pacific. So it's a big long range, and that's, you know, the benefit of reaching out to support.